When I was between 5 and 10 years old, I remember having air raids, both in school and at night, and wardens would walk around the neighborhood, put those lights out, turn those lights out. And we were blessed here in America, where we weren't bombed. Were precautions for us as kids and adults. But in Europe, it was not the case. And so I'll bring you back in memory to the early 40s. And we're in a town tonight called Warrington, England. And we know England was bombed heavily by the Nazis. And in this little town, just outside it, was a prisoner of war camp. The lights were out in almost all the houses. No beautiful colored bulbs to light your way as you came tonight. For only the church was lit, and all the other houses and street lights were all dimmed, all out. They were trudging along, maybe on a cold night like this, to midnight mass. And by 11:30, almost the whole church was filled, except the first 1, 2, 3 pews. They were reserved. They were open. Not for a president and not for the governor. But at 11:50, in came armed guards of the British Army. And they were accompanying prisoners of war, Italian and German prisoners. They marched them down and they filled up those first 3 pews. That was 11:50. 11:55, Father Rockford comes out, the parish priest. He says, "I have bad news. The organist, our only one, is sick, so there'll be no music tonight." Imagine that at midnight mass. So the groan went across the church, of course, and with that, one of the German prisoners of war said something to one of the guards. He went up to Father Rockford, and the priest nodded his head. And that German prisoner of war walked over to the organ and played so beautifully, almost everyone was in tears. What was learned that night in Warrington, England, are a few major facts. The spirit of Christmas all of a sudden took on new light. From the darkness of the outside, the lighted church inside took on new meaning. It also showed that on that night in Warrington, people, friends and enemies of the war going on at the time, saw each other as God intended all of us to be, one family. That night in Warrington, the light of a great star, whose birthday we just heard from Luke's Gospel, and his name is Jesus, who said, "I am the light of the world." And he lit up that whole countryside in its dark darkness. That night in Warrington, the words of the prophet Isaiah that we just heard Ellie give to us came alive for the people in a very beautiful way. For Isaiah wrote, and it was fulfilled that night in Warrington, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Upon those who dwelt in the land of gloom, a light has shone." We gather tonight, some 60, 70 years later, and we come together as family. And we come together as God's people and rejoice that God is our Father. And in the course of history, at one point, sent his own son Jesus to be our Savior, our best friend, and our brother. And he allowed Mary, giving us her from the cross, "Behold your son, behold your mother." And so we rejoice tonight that we have a special God, the Father who cares for us, loved us so much to send us his own Son. and the Son to show you and me how to live, how to die, how to suffer, how to forgive, but above all, how to love.